So yesterday I was scrolling through YouTube and I got the idea, and by got the idea I mean I saw someone do it, but hey, you know what, it's imitation is a form of flattery or whatever. I don't know, man. I'm not the first person to ever do this. I'm gonna be reading reviews across Steam and Metacritic for Expedition 33, and we'll talk about the negative reviews. We're gonna try to be constructive more than deconstructive. Basically, I'll be pointing out where people are wrong in their reviews. I mean, that's still subjective, but hey, whatever. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, a very big Game of the Year front runner for Year of Our Lord 2025, and we're gonna go through and see what people are hating about it for the few reviews that people are actually hating about it, because this is overall 93.3k positive, overwhelmingly, even recently 14.1k. So what are people saying? And there might be some slight spoilers as a result of this. If I have to touch on spoilers, I will be kind of vague about them still, but there will probably be some spoilers. Sorry. Oh my god, this is a long one. Why is this negative? What a beautiful and deep story that trusts the viewer and truly touches you. No freebie happy ending either. No, it's tragic as fuck. Just real human emotion. I almost gave it a thumbs up just for that. The world building, the artistic direction, the visuals, the writing, characters, the facial animations, and it's really all exceptional and best in class. You can see how people love this. Praises are deserved. It would have been an amazing movie trilogy or animated series for me. However, it fails as a video game. What, girl? First, a turn-based game that ends up being entirely Twitch-based for most non-trivial fights, even if QTE's off, and even in a story mode for much of a harder content. The main detriment of most fights is your ability to dodge/parry. In a turn-based game, this is going to be a big theme that's going to be in a lot of the negative reviews, is the difficulty as a result of it being a dodge-parry system. An active turn-based RPG with the active combat, kind of like similar to Mario RPG and Paper Mario. Still, the ultra boring combat is just not for me. There's literally no point in trying different character builds, as the combat pretty much involves learning boss patterns and keep doing perfect parry to do damage. If you can't time the parry and only dodge, the fights just get way too ridiculously long and boring. Quick time mechanics, and yes, I hate Souls games for this very... When did a Souls game have quick time mechanics? Is he playing God of War and thinks God of War is a Souls game? Because God of War's got quick times? In a turn-based game, I want to be challenged on my strategy and thinking, not my ability to press a button at the right time. If I wanted that, I would have played Dance Dance Revolution. Well, that's why he mentioned Dance Dance Revolution. It's a rhythm game. So he's seeing, and a lot of people do compare the parry dodge timing as a rhythm type of thing. And it absolutely can be a rhythm game. To be fair, there was some guy on YouTube that did do an entire playthrough where he didn't dodge or parry, and he beat the super boss. Hitting or missing the action elements can make an encounter trivial or impossible. Turn-based takes a backseat to the unfortunate system, making combat a frustrating chore. I think that an active combat system is fine because it still allows for making a lot of mistakes. The game allows for so many mistakes. I think on the last boss, I think I ate more than half of his hits. Well, A, I was overleveled as fuck, but B, I just wasn't bothering to learn at that point because I was just I was at the very end and I just kept eating hit after hit after hit after hit. Part of the strategy is to learn how to parry. So it's not just a put the controller down kind of game, and there's still plenty of strategy to be had. Even outside of just your defensive mechanisms, there's so many crazy and wild builds you can do by the end of the game. I was comparing what I did endgame to what the Woodland Rogue did on endgame. We had two completely separate builds. Even on the hardest difficulty, it's too easy. Tell that to the other guys. Holy crap. I think like he probably got to like the second or third area. He's still in Act 1. A lot of Act 1 enemies up until towards the end are kind of very basic and simple because it's still teaching you the basics of the game and slowly ramping up the difficulty curve of what enemies are going to do. So him saying it's simple, that's cool to say that he thinks it's simple, but I feel like if this person had stuck around with the game, they probably would have started hitting that hurdle, because starting towards the end of Act 1 and then frequently in Act 2, even towards the halfway point in Act 2, parry timings start to really ramp up and you really have to pay more attention. And who knows, maybe this person would have also thought that was easy. And yeah, that's the other part of the combat in this game is you can absolutely take your time and have fights take forever. I think saying that you want the game to be challenged based on strategy you clearly missed the point of what tools were available. The parry/evade system is tough, even on easy. The guy even says he was really engrossed with the game, but just didn't like the gameplay. To me, it just sounds like he needed to play on a lower difficulty, and he probably needed to not play one-handed. I don't know. The game can be very challenging, but it can be also very easy, and the game does have a story mode difficulty for people who struggle with those kind of things and want to just kind of cruise. I've actually been watching someone recently playing through the story mode difficulty, and they're cruising and having a blast just cruising, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm very biased towards this game because I have put this game in my top 3. This is number 3 for me out of all games. This game is just remarkable. I did receive the game for free courtesy of Sandfall. However, I was not obligated to say nice things about it, and even initially when I hopped in, I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't really expecting anything, but for me, it earned the high praises that I'm giving it, because I went in kind of like saying like, oh, look at this, all this French stuff, huh? And then at the end, like by the end of Act 1, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I have a big twist that happens, the thing that happens. It's a very emotionally evoking game, and I would call it a masterpiece. That's just my perspective. Killed my boy, kind of sank my entire experience, took all my fun right out of it. Combat has been way less enjoyable because I had a well-crafted team. So he's talking about something that happens at the end of Act 1, and you can absolutely make a very crazy build around this character from Act 1. To me, when it happened, it wasn't necessarily the end of the world, and I don't think it would be enough to... 14 hours. I think I was 20 hours in when I finished Act 1. So he did a lot. I mean, I get it. We all love Charlie Cox, so that's partially understandable. But I found that the fights required next to no strategical flexibility. I would enter a fight, and 95% of the time, I would rinse and repeat the same combos that would beat the fight no problem, even on the hardest difficulty. The skill test on this game really is timing the enemy combos above anything else. To me, if he's saying he's doing the same thing over and over and not doing character builds, then he's absolutely missing a large chunk of the game. And that just sucks, because the game gives you so many tools. It gives you such a ridiculous amount of tools to shape a very insane playthrough and break the norms of a standard RPG. But you have to be willing to play around with things and find what works and doesn't work. And if you're unwilling to do that, then yeah, you're gonna have a very bland, basic, boring experience. MC, Verso, main mechanic, perfection, which is based on not getting hit, forever forcing you to the Dance Dance Revolution gameplay. But he's complaining about one character's playstyle, which yes, this one character has a Devil May Cry style rating system where the better you perform and better moves you do, more parries you hit, and the more you don't get hit, you rank up your style system and start doing more damage and gaining access to more bonuses. Now they have systems to get around a lot of that stuff and even start at rank S. I mean, he's calling this character the main character. That's up for debate also if you get to the ending. To me, the main character was Mael, not Verso, but that's still subjective. But that's the other part is there's 4 other characters you could play as. You don't have to have Verso in your party. At the end of the game, when I beat Simon, Verso was not in my party. My party ended up just being Lune, Mael, and CL. That left Monaco and Verso just kind of chilling. And I still played Monaco most of the game because you needed to do crazy shit for him. So there were other options besides this one character. You don't have to necessarily play one character, etc. What's etc.? It's not a good... This is not... Saying etc. is what is your point? What are your points? You can't just say etc. You have to list points. With unlabeled monsters with hidden levels, more than half of which will one-shot you because they are not meant to be encountered yet. It's a gauntlet of trial and errors and frustrating and unrewarding, but importantly, wonky monsters that are going to one-shot you. If you're talking about in the open world, there's exploration of the open world, and if you go into an area you're not intended to be in, the game straight up warns you, danger. Now, if you're talking about exploration within the level, if you're getting one-shot by the secret mobs that are within a level, you're not doing what the game wants you to do of learning along the way, because those are the tougher challenges within the levels. Those secret tougher challenges within the levels are intended to be harder and intended to be almost a test. And if you don't see it that way, and you just basically want all the fights to be the same difficulty and handed to you, then that's, I don't know what you're expecting out of the game. The world is filled with the same mobs, especially by the end of the game. Lack of enemy variations. There are a lot of different mobs in the game as well. By the end of the game, with some mobs, they do the thing where they just, oh, this is the mob from earlier, but red to signify that it's harder. The world is empty, absolutely zero exploring. Some environments have an artificial looking design to it, and the map design is atrocious, seemingly designed to take your time and make you walk in circles. Don't ever get me started on the sad state of level design. The best part of the game are the beautiful graphics and setting, which is unfortunate since it isn't terribly special in this age of game. But you were just saying the level design is bad, and now you're saying it looks nice? The world is empty. It is, as I said, visually stunning, but I found myself running around looking for things and secrets and rarely finding anything. Second, poor level design. Oh. Annoying little maps that are all samey with no sense of direction, no way to explore cleanly, where you end up going around in circles until you convince yourself that you've got everything. It's just tedious and exhausting. But to save your zero exploration, I mean, there's so many secrets hidden all over the game. I think you can't even really save your zero exploring. There might be a few outliers in the level design, but for the most part, the levels are more of a, and I heard this in a playthrough I was watching. They described the level design as a look but don't touch for the most part, where a lot of things are just kind of set in thematic pieces, more than traversable. This isn't making the promise that Destiny made, where they said, hey, see that mountain back there? You can go there. No, they don't even pretend. The levels are very linear with a few secret pockets here and there, but finding those secret pockets is really fun. Now, granted, the tile sets do get very samey very quickly. However, there's enough going on in the environment of that look but don't touch where it differentiates itself enough to make it stand out. There are a lot of nothing areas, but there are a lot of, no, there's a reason why the path is shaped like this areas. I would honestly even hazard to say like 60-40 or even potentially 75-25 on that ratio. I found the exploration more rewarding than not, but that's me, who the completionist that 100% of a game. So like I can 50-50 agree on this one of the poor level design. If you engage in any meaningful amount of side content, you rapidly become overly powerful. Not wrong. Trivializing the rest of the story content and breaking the game balance. This can easily sucks the challenge and the fun out of more than half the game. Game balance in the final third is terrible. It is. They hand you a billion tools to break the norms of a standard JRPG style game and kind of make up your own rules depending on how you build your characters. So yeah, the balance is terrible, but that's the point. They want you to do crazy shit. Like my whole build was hitting enemies for millions of damage. The Woodland Rogue's whole strategy was, I'm gonna machine gun this thing to death, and anytime a character in my party dies, they're just gonna get back up at full health and just keep attacking. I felt all the side content was very rewarding. Very cringe and awkward gestural minigame. Gestural beach Gestural beach volleyball. Not recommended because of an optional side game. This would have been game of the year if not for some idiotic jumping challenges that take forever and make you start from the very beginning each time you fail. Aww. So gestural minigames are optional, and for the most part, the majority of them are only up. And they're very simple compared to only up. And once again, you only get cosmetics out of them. The feeling of completion plus an achievement. This person, once again, probably doesn't like mini games or platforming. I get it, you're playing an RPG, so you're not expecting platforming mini games. But in that case, just don't play them, you know? It's optional for a reason. Slew of meaningless and unattractive cosmetics, which could have been something else. To each their own. I liked hunting the cosmetics. Not all the cosmetics had to be attractive. I know we didn't have big booby costumes, and maybe bro really wanted a big booby costume. Weird obsession with swimsuits, which are not even fan service worthy. Yep, that's that. He's mad that we didn't give big booby costumes. I mean, this is like 1800s Paris. Seems to be the setting. Aw, damn. You can't have sex with SKA. That is a big downside. 34 hours in, he couldn't find the hidden SKA sex scene. For anyone who doesn't know, SKA is your mount. He is the big, round, giant creature that hangs out with you and talks very derpy. Is voice acted by the guy with the mocap. Some of the dialogue is pretty cringe. The dialogue being pretty cringe, I mean, there's a lot of points where I can definitely see you being able to say, this dialogue was cringe, but at the end of the day, yeah, we're just trying to have fun with the world and the characters. So I don't necessarily think things are too cringe. You got to think of also the time period that it's in. Saying dialogue in games is cringe, because he's even saying some of the dialogue. Okay, well, some of the dialogue's cringe. Some of the dialogue's great. There's a lot of games where, as long as it's not being machine gunned off on you, like in Forspoken, you can forgive cringe dialogue in places, but for the most part, again, in this game, they're just trying to have fun with the characters and make them seem more relatable to different audiences. And I think they hit the mark in a lot of categories. Turn-based French Final Fantasy. Turn-based French Final Fantasy. They're not wrong. It did feel very derivative of Final Fantasy games. Saying it feels very derivative of Final Fantasy. Well, the director said he wanted to make a Final Fantasy game his whole life. So there you go. He did it. He made a Final Fantasy game. Undeveloped characters. Excessive drama makes me take the situation not too serious, and everything could have been solved with sitting up and talk. For a JRPG, where stories and characters are one of the important pieces, it feels wrong and so bland. Nothing happens till the end of every act, making the pacing really bad. Maybe if a few more hours of game and work and the character's development would have to do some good, because neither Mael or Verso changes until the very end. That's the two main characters are Mael and Verso. I don't think that either one of them changes even at the end. You find out inklings throughout the game. Like, Verso is the same character throughout the whole game. And if you look at hints of what his character is the entire time, you can kind of see what he is and what he actually stands for. Because he's low-key the scummiest character in the game and lying to everybody the whole time. But undeveloped characters, there are, because there's 5 characters in the game, you do end up losing out on some plot of some characters. Granted, they do flesh out some of the characters. I'm thinking of Lune and CL. CL especially. CL is 100% the most undeveloped character, where they do give her plenty of backstory, but it's just that. It's just backstory about more or less how she ended up where she is. It still feels like her backstory doesn't reflect her character. And that's just a result of how much more work they put into the world and building the world and the main thing that's happening rather than the characters. So in a way, some of the side characters are a little bit underdeveloped. I don't think it's the biggest detriment in the world to really negatively impact the game, because they still feel like good and fun characters. Terrible story of bland, one-dimensional characters. Not, yes, a couple of the side characters could have used more things to make them feel more fleshed a little bit, rather than just relying wholly on backstory. But just say that then, you know? I just phrased that perfectly. The characters in the world stop having depth the more you go into it when it seems otherwise. You learn more about the characters as you go along and talk to them. And as the scenarios keep going and going, like, there's just more to learn and explore. I don't understand. They lack a fire in them. They all have a fire in them the whole time. Every time that they hear there's a new challenge, they all literally go chase it head on. What do you mean they lack a fire in them? Way overrated. The art feels like a soulless tech demo. What does that even mean? Those are two completely different things. The art feels like a soulless tech demo. I don't understand that one, because graphics are irrelevant in what a tech demo is. Did you know that Devil May Cry 1 was a tech demo for stuff they wanted to do with Resident Evil, and then it just kind of spun off to its own project? That's a tech demo. Tech demos are a thing to show new systems that someone's doing. And then, like, the art, I mean, yeah, have you ever heard of what art style is? It's visual style? I don't know, man. I think this one's not that great. Poorly optimized and just force dumping on the GPU. It's Unreal Engine 5. Sorry, bud. If he's talking about having bad performance issues, because to me, this game ran like a dream. They optimized the living crap out of this engine. When I started playing this game, I had just come off of South of Midnight, which South of Midnight had more than double the storage requirement that Expedition 33 had, and they were both similar engines, where one was a mix of UE4, UE5, and then this one was just UE5. This was half a space and ran twice as good. So that's the unfortunate aspect of modern gaming, where we're demanding better, more serious graphics. We have to go to these crazier, more extreme engines. And at that point, studios can do all the optimizing in the world. The fact that it's Unreal Engine 5, it's gonna absolutely kill some computers, some PCs. The monster/enemy design of this game is non-existent. Technically, most of the enemies are different. Then what's the problem? But they are all faceless enemies of largely the same bland design, making each combat feel very uninspired. I know what he's talking about. He made it to the second level, and that's where he stopped. This extends to the friendly NPCs you meet along the way. I understand this is intentional design choice, but the game feels like one big palette of various shades of gray. Yeah, he only made it to the second level. And even in the second level, there's so many blues and reds. And in the first level is probably the most gray, but it even still has so much blues and greens. There's so many things you could say about it, because like I think the monster designs and just the way the game is built in general is they're constantly dangling the bait in front of you to try to make you keep going and going and finding out what's going on, seeing why these things look the way they are, act the way they do. And I took the bait and I loved it. The more of this game I played, the more I loved of it, because even at the end of a prologue, I was full in. And when I finished playing in my first session, I just kept thinking, I want to keep playing this. These people kind of gave up and decided they hated it before they found the solution to the things they're complaining about. It's so hard with a JRPG because you think of like FF7 and how someone can fall off of FF7 at the end of the bombing run, for example. Let's look at FF7, the bombing run. It's fun and exciting, but then like you don't have full access to the materia system, you don't have full access to everyone in the party yet. So if you can end up thinking, if that's it, then I don't want to play. But if you go to the next part, it solves for what you're complaining about. So it's so hard to not just be like, just give it another 5 hours, you know? It's just very weird, kind of confusing, doesn't give you much as to explain why things are the way they are in the game. Well, here's the thing about explaining why things are the way they are in the game. The world is the way it is, and they want you to play the game to find out. So unfortunately, in your first 5 hours of a video game, you're not going to find out the deal. In fact, I didn't find out the deal until about closer to 30 to 50 hours in, but we're not going to talk about that. The setting and story start off strong, but are brought down by the mediocre writing. The prologue is filled with poorly executed exposition drops and an attempt at a gut-wrenching tragedy by a disaster. Game slow and also just random story with no message. There's a very strong message in the game. For anyone who doesn't know, the overarching message of the game is grief, how to approach grief. And there's 2 possible endings that involve your approach to grief. If this person played through long enough, you could easily find that. They slap it in your face the whole time. Interesting premise with an intro that really hooked me, unfortunately let down by the way the story developed. I'm feeling like a lot of people have never been through grief, because the game is very centered around grief. It's more subtle at first, but the ending slaps you in the face with it really hard. The gameplay is so boring, not a fan of it all. I don't like turn-based combat. Why did you buy a turn-based game? That's the other thing. Why are these people buying a turn-based game if they do not like turn-based game? I don't get it, man. It's weird. And then going out of your way to review it badly? If anything, I should review you badly, knowingly buying things you don't like. Because guess what? I can go back to Steam. I can cycle through the stuff and I can be like, wait, is this turn-based? Oh, I don't like that. Great soundtrack, beautiful soundtrack, has gotten the rave reviews on the majority of bad reviews.
Even the negative reviews compliment
the majority of bad reviews are complimenting the shit out of a soundtrack. Music is fantastic. Audio, especially the music. Bro, it's good music. The soundtrack is really the only exceptional thing about the game. Music is good. The ending kind of ruined the whole thing, for at least for me. None of the character aspirations mattered in the end. It all came down to grief being the big reveal, either to accept it or wallow in it. Wow, that's actually really, that is pretty much it. Not every story has a happy ending. Expedition 33 is kind of a tragedy, but it's a beautiful tragedy. And depending on which ending you get, you see every character aspiration come to fruition -1. And that's where I'm going to be vague about it. Yeah, nothing matters, but the way they reveal that about the status of the world and what the world is and what the overarching thing that's happening is, it's the biggest twist and most massive reveal in the game. And it takes everything that happened up to that point, and it really does make it feel like it didn't matter, but the way that they're going about doing it is phenomenal, because it's just turning everything on its head. You're no longer playing Candyland. It turns out you've been playing Monopoly the whole time, but one person who's playing Monopoly has been putting battleship pieces all over the board. That's exactly it. You learn that everything has this bigger, grander purpose, and it just flips everything around to just extreme. I don't really agree with that. I do agree. I mean, they hit the nail on the head on what the meaning is. Two very good stories put together with duct tape. Then what's the problem? You got two good games. What?